Good evening, my people, my people. Blessed to see another day. Giving our praise and honor to God, the big G-O-D is the head of my life. Life is so much more pleasant when we focus on God. With that being said, I just want to touch on something today that I feel somebody needs to hear it. I wish I had heard it a lot sooner, but God is good. The first thing I'll say is that all things work to the greater good of those who believe according to God's purpose. So the subject I want to touch on is just, I feel like it's a disease. This disease that starts with a D, divorce. And I feel like because we perish for lack of knowledge, as you can find in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. If we know better, we do better. I feel like we are not educated on what the point of marriage is, the purpose of marriage is. First of all, we need to stop looking at it as two people being happy. That's not the purpose of marriage. That's not what God intended marriage to be. Number one. I think we need to change the focal point of marriage to being two people that are exuding God as one flesh. Two people that are edifying God. Marriages need to be more focused on honoring God. He needs to be first. Honoring God, submitting to God, serving God, loving God. If you can't honor the one who made you, if you can't love the one who made you, if you can't submit to the one who made you, really? What makes you think you're going to do this to a person? So first and foremost, marriages need to be about God first. Honoring Him, loving Him, submitting to Him. Only then will it trickle down from the vertical to the horizontal between the two people that are one flesh. The next thing is, I feel like people look at marriage as a contract when it's not. It's a covenant. You're taking vows before God, and if you look at it biblically, covenants aren't broken, not with God. Even in disobedience and sin, the only proof you need is to look outside. God made a covenant that He would never flood the earth again. You look outside, you see that rainbow, right? In spite of us sinning every day. And before He made the covenant, He knew that in 2023, we was going to be cutting up when He made that covenant. Yet He still made it. Because God knows and sees all. So He knew it was going to be disrespectful, rebellious, all of that. And still made the covenant to not flood the earth. And the covenant, it stays in place with God. God doesn't leave covenants. I feel like, a lot of times, and I'm not talking about situations where you have violence, or a situation where you're being abused. You gotta get yourself to a safe place. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of marriages, you don't fully exhaust all options. And also that both parties don't join together in unison for the goal of the marriage working. You have to work on it in order to be able to work in it. So fully exhausting it, I feel like it's two people submitting to God. Not one submitting to God and one has his foot in the world, or vice versa. Like both have to submit to God. And I feel like if you get two people that love God, submit to God, honor God, they're going to be able to do that with one another. And I just feel like we get in our emotions because we're human and we're flesh. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. That comes down to you feeding the spirit more than the flesh. The more you read, the closer you get to God, the better you are. But we get in our feelings and we're like, well, God, no, I don't want to do this because He did X, Y, Z. You just don't know. Pause that. God knows already. God knew what your spouse was going to do to afflict you before you were born. Before you even were thought of, God knew. when you were going to get married, who you was going to marry, what you were going to go through. So God knows all, okay? God's perfect will is to make it work. Nobody said it was going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Anything that is worth having takes work. So I just feel like we have to get out of our personal feelings and get to a place where we can say, what does God want? And we know what he wants. He hates divorce. So ultimately we know he wants reconciliation. He told, and I'm saying it as he said, told Jose to go back to Gomer, the adulterous wife who he still loved. He didn't ask him. He didn't say, if you want to. He said, go back. So we know that God, perfect will, even in situations of adultery and infidelity, would prefer you to reconcile. How do we know that? He gave us the ministry of reconciliation. Yes, indeed. And we were reconciled to God through Christ. So we got to look at marriage and what the meaning of it is to God, not to what it means to us, what the world says it's supposed to embody. No, because that's not what marriage is. The world got it wrong. The world got it to where you can marry 5 or 6 times if you want to. You can sit here and you'll go to court and say, I do to this till death, better for worse, sickness and health. And then they'll cancel it because it's a piece of paper to them and it's not a covenant and it's not a promise to and before God. We got to educate ourselves on what marriage is. And maybe in doing that, it'll actually prevent people from getting married who are getting married for the wrong reasons. You know, you have to ask yourself, for better, for worse, can you really picture the worst thing that person can do and then say, you know what, to honor my vows, I want to stay in it. A lot of people say for better or worse, and they mean for better or until I get tired. A lot of people say in sickness and health, and they really mean in sickness until I get tired. A lot of people say till death do us part, and they mean until I'm emotionally dead, not literally dead. So we have to educate ourselves on what the purpose of marriage is according to God, not man. And then operate in that point of view, that reason why God said man and woman will become one flesh. It's to honor God, uplift God, edify God, not ourselves. It's not for our happiness. That's not the purpose of it. And we rebel when we take the focus off God and get in our emotions. And we have people that are giving us contrary advice to this, saying that what you're doing is okay if it's not what God would want. You know, those friends, those counselors, that lawyer, are they gonna be your representation on Judgment Day? No. Now I get it, we go through things and we have to deal with pains and wounds, but there is nothing that God can't heal. If he's a God of reconciliation, by bringing us back to him through Christ, stop playing with God. God can repair anything. He brought something dead, as in Lazarus, back to life. Jesus was dead and was resurrected. God can bring anything that you think dead, including a marriage, back if you submit to him. And submitting to him is what he wants to do. He wants us to do that. And in submitting to him, he wants us to submit to one another and love one another, especially if we've taken vows and made a covenant with God. The Bible says it's better not to make a vow than to make one and not deliver when we make a vow with God. This thing is serious, and we're not educated on what marriage means, how we're supposed to carry ourselves in marriages. We're sitting here looking at what we see on TV, social media, what our friends are saying, instead of going to this precious book and understanding that marriage isn't about us, it's about God. Okay? that love is, sometimes it hurts. Look at Jesus. Look at Jesus. Jesus could have gotten his emotions and said, oh no, this hurt too much. I can't do this. He did. You know why? He said, not thy will, let thy will be done. Not my will, let thy will be done. And he was hurting. Yet he decided to do the God thing over the good thing. Same thing in a marriage. God knew you were going to go through all this pain, but it worked for the greater good. There's a reason behind it. Number one, you will be able to have a testimony to say, we went through the worst and God fixed it, repaired it. The marriage is a different marriage now. It's 100-fold better than what it was before. It's an opportunity to shine a light on that with God, nothing is impossible. You have an opportunity to be a modern day passage in the Bible today to people to see that God is still working. But that requires submission and being a sacrificial lamb in the sense of, I'm going to sit here and hurt in order to do the God thing and please God and uplift God. And God ain't going to let you do it in vain. He's not. You just have to get out of your feelings. Stop being so personal about it. Stop thinking God doesn't love you. God knew everything you was going to go through when you were born, before you were born, before you were thought of, before your granddaddy was thought of. Okay? He's in control. There's nothing that's out of his reach. Nothing too low, nothing too high. So we have to just get to a place where we understand what God planned for us when he joined us together as one flesh. Okay? It's not about us, it's about God. You know, and then you have to stop rebelling. Don't let anybody tell you something contrary, especially if you're not in a situation where there's violence or your life's in danger. Don't let anybody tell you that God said leave your spouse. God is never gonna sit there and say leave your spouse because he hates divorce, okay? If you pray for your spouse to change and get better, let me tell you something. If God changed that spouse and made them a better person behind your prayers, I guarantee you, he didn't say, okay, I heard you pray and you wanted them to change. I've changed them, but I'm going to change them for you to leave or for them to leave and they be better for another spouse. No. I rebuke that right there, right now, today. God is not going to change your spouse that you prayed for the change to happen, only to let that spouse be a better person that you prayed for them to be for another spouse. It doesn't work that way. If he answered your prayers and did it, that's confirmation that that's your husband, that's your wife. He's not going to fix what was broken so that the now fixed version of this person who you love can be a better for somebody else. No, he made that person a better for you. But you have to remove yourself from your feelings and emotions. Heal. Ask God to heal you and take the affliction and pain away. Ask him to open your heart back up and turn it back into flesh. And then stop rebelling. Stop saying, God, you're just going to have to deal with me on it. No, just do what will please God. The same way that Jesus did. You're not hurting any more than Jesus did. Jesus got beat, spit on, stabbed in the ribs, a thorn made crown, and he died for us. Why would you quit for something that you're not facing the same type of pain when he died for you to be able to be a testament today of love, what real love is? And love, according to God, is patient, is kind. It's either wrong, it's never boasting. It's sacrificial love. At the end of the day, the marriage is about God, not two people. It's about God, okay? But you have to get in this because they're not teaching it. So get in this and understand that God didn't say marriage was going to be perfect. He didn't say you weren't going to hurt. He didn't say that it was going to be sunshine only. You're going to have rain. You're going to have storms. You're going to cry. Jesus wept. Okay? Submit to God. That's the first thing in a marriage. For a marriage to work, both of y'all have to submit to God. Both of you have to love God. Both of you have to honor God. Once you get to a point where you can do that for God, it's easy to do it between one another. But we don't have that as the example of what marriage is about. We are so superficial. We want this big wedding. We want this house, this car. We want to be able to post everything about, my husband, my wife. Make the marriage about God. Make it about God. And I guarantee that that thing will last till death, as those vows you said. Okay? So I don't know who needs to hear it, but maybe if you get in here and see what marriage really means, you'll pump the brakes on getting married because you know you're getting married to somebody that you can't do that with, or you get married for the wrong reason. If you get married to somebody you love and you both decide to make that marriage about God, or if you're in a marriage and it's going through the ringer, if you both can get to a place where you submit, remove yourself from your emotions, make it about God, that marriage can be restored to tenfold to a new marriage. If you two become new creatures in Christ, that marriage will become new because you're no longer the same versions of yourself. Now, I'm not saying you were going to forget about everything that you went through, but that's where you ask God to remove that from you, to remove that pain, that hurt, those wounds. Especially if you truly love the person you're with and you just decided that you want to leave because you're hurting, God can fix that. God can fix that. It is His will for us to stay together because of marriage. It's recognition to God. Okay? God ain't coming in here and telling people to divorce. That's the devil. The devil is a divider. If somebody is telling you that God told them that, they are lying, and you need to rebuke them, because He ain't telling nobody to leave nobody. He's not telling nobody that I'm gonna fix your spouse for somebody else. No. If you prayed for a change and the change happened, that was for you, for your good. It works for the greater good of those who believe. That was for you, not for the next man or woman that they are gonna come into contact with. No. Get in here, read it for understanding and application. Okay? Let's do better. The devil is winning with this division. He's killing generations of kings and queens by cutting the head off. If he can separate the two and pull them apart, you never know down the line if there was a Nathan the prophet or a Moses or a Job that was going to come from that bloodline. Because now we've allowed the devil to stop God's plan. Ask yourself, what is God's plan? That no man perish. God's plan that all marriages thrive. He honors all marriages. If you take it and put it in God's hand, there's nothing impossible with God. All right? Y'all be blessed. I hope that somebody is listening, it resonated with them. If you're going through a situation, take it to God. Get in here and read this and understand that submitting to God, loving God, honoring God, that's the key to any relationship. Removing yourself from your personal emotions and feelings. Understanding that God knew you were going to hurt before you started hurting. So don't rebel and be in your feelings and tell God you're not going to do something. That's not submitting. Submit to the Father. Life would be so much better. All right, I love y'all. Be blessed. Let's change the narrative. Let's take back what the meaning of marriage is and take it back to what God made man and woman one flesh for. It's to uplift Him and edify Him. Make your marriage about God. Whether before you get married or the marriage that you're currently in, make it about shining a light on God. Everything will work out. I love y'all. And another thing I want to point out. Let's go to Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do it as if you're doing it for the Lord and not unto men. That thing there is powerful. Just think about it. If everything you did, you did it to honor God. But I feel like we do things that don't honor God harder than we do when it comes to honoring God. Prime example, and we do it ceaselessly, diligently, no quit. For instance, let's go to the gym. I see women and men in the gym working out, putting themselves through vigorous workouts and going through pain, because workouts are painful. It's breaking down the body. I see them going through all of that for a goal that no matter if it takes 10 months, 2 years, 4 years, you don't stop working out. You keep taking yourself through pain because that goal means too much for you to not see it through to the end. But you're not doing it to honor God. You ain't in there doing hip thrusters to get a big hiney to honor God. That's something that you're doing for yourself. It's selfish. We value ourselves more than we value God. Because I have yet to see a person give up on having a better body. I see some people that I've been going to the gym for 4 or 5 years. They look the same, but they don't stop working out. They don't miss workouts. Why? The end goal, it means too much to them. And they're willing to go through hours and hours of workouts till they get there. And they're not gonna stop until they get there. Same with marriages. It takes work. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you're gonna hurt yourself. You get your feelings hurt. But it is to honor God. And if you do it to honor God, that has to mean more than having an hourglass body or big broad shoulders. Why don't we have that same type of dedication to our marriages, which are to honor God? I see it all the time. People push themselves with all of these workouts, day in, day out, for years. Some not even seeing any results, but they don't stop. It's not that same type of commitment to marriages these days. It's, I'm gonna replace. I just hate how people feel like you can just replace a human being. It's not like a light bulb. Like, if you really love somebody, I feel like, that is an irreplaceable person. You can't, you get one mother, one father. I feel like if you marry somebody, they're in that same conversation of a person that you should not be able to replace. But we just have lost focus on what the whole purpose of marriage is for. And I feel like people are getting married for the wrong reasons. Therefore, marriages don't last because they don't have the right substance. They don't have the right nucleus. And they don't have God as the head of the marriage. So it's gonna be a problem when it comes to withstanding storms. You're gonna be like the 12 where when they were on the ship and the storm came and they panicked because they didn't fully grasp it. All they had to do was just trust God, trust Jesus. Nothing is finna happen to us if Jesus is on the ship with us. You feel me? And a marriage is a ship, a relation. It's a relationship. If Jesus is on the ship and you're trusting in Jesus, that ship is gonna survive the storm if you both submit to God. Let's have some commitment to marriages and stop looking for reasons to leave and look for reasons not to leave. And if it's one reason not to leave, that is enough, because Jesus will leave the 99 to go save the one. If there's one reason why you still love this person, is that not worth doing all you can and putting it in God's hand to make it work? Do you really want to deal with quitting without fully exhausting all options? As an athlete, I can't quit. I have to lose swinging. I have to be defeated on the battlefield, not walking away from the fight. And I feel like that is what we need to do in regards to marriages. It needs to be serious. It's a covenant, not a piece of paper. outside of violence and being in danger, I feel like if both parties submit to the Lord, if both parties get closer to the Lord, if both parties start loving the Lord first, then that marriage can be uplifted and be a testimony of overcoming a storm. Y'all be blessed.